Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Toni. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I think you are going to like this episode. It is a training I did in my Facebook group. I'm doing this thing now when I do my training. Sometimes I record the podcast and killing two birds with one stone. It's really, really awesome. So it helps with productivity. I put a lot of great content there. So if you're not in the group, you definitely want to join the group. Sidebar, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe. It allows other people to find the podcast, but more importantly, it notifies you when a new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday, so you never miss it. So if you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts or you're not following on Spotify, make sure that you do that. All right, guys. So without further ado, I'm gonna give you some helpful stress management tips. Enjoy. Okay, so if you're listening to this today, when I'm doing the live in the Facebook group, it is Friday. We're about to approach the weekend. I know I released these podcasts on Monday, but regardless, these stress management tips are going to help you not just to get through the weekend, not just get through the week, but for a lifetime. But the reason why I wanted to record it today on a Friday is because you guys know that I coach clients all week long, and a lot of times in our sessions, things come up. And the biggest thing, there's usually a theme, the biggest thing that's been coming up a lot recently is stress management and learning how to deal with it. Because if you don't, a lot of times what ends up happening is we turn to food as a coping mechanism. This is actually not a bad thing if you think about it compared to the other outlets that we can utilize that can be damaging to our health or our mental state, like drugs or alcohol. Using food as a coping mechanism is actually safer than those other outlets, and also isn't as bad if we use it in a manageable way. But the chances are, when we're talking about stress eating, it's usually in a way that makes us feel really guilty, really bloated, really sluggish, really upset with ourselves. And at the end of the day, it didn't change the situation, right? So because you had a stressful day and now you decided you were going to get French fries with cheese on top. Shout out to my childhood. If you've never had French fries with melted mozzarella cheese, that would be my lunch when I would go to the diner with my parents. Okay. So sometimes now that could be something that when you're feeling triggered, you're feeling stressed out and you just want to zone out, you go and you get yourself French fries with melted mozzarella on top, and you eat that whole thing. And in the moment, you are loving it. You are enjoying it. You are almost obsessed with how delicious this is. And you're not thinking about your problems. You're not worried about anything, and you feel good, right? But what happens after we have that little mini binging session, or we eat something that we didn't really necessarily want? It was a reaction to a stressor, or feeling angry or upset or disappointed. We let that sit, and 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, our stomach is killing us. And if you're anything like me, who's super sensitive to fried foods, your stomach will be bloated for the next couple of days. It's not just one day. And you just kind of are like, why did I do that? I know I didn't want to do that. So you decide, you know what? I'm going to start on Monday. Monday comes around and you try to eat really well, really balanced, and you do. But the stressors from the week knock you down, and it becomes Friday, and it happens all over again. So if you want to break the cycle, listen up, okay? This is really, really important. So you do not allow the stresses in your life to continue to pull you down from your health and wellness goals. All right. Now, there are some emotional eating strategies that I teach my clients and that I've recorded on podcasts, and you could actually go back and listen to how to manage emotional eating. I have to look up the episode number, but it's also an episode I did with the Gymwits. I got interviewed by Tara Maslow, the social worker. She interviewed me about emotional eating, and there's an episode about it if you kind of go back. What I actually wanted to talk about is not so much how to manage emotional eating, because although there are strategies to do that, I wanted to talk about what's the root source, because although I teach my clients how to manage emotional eating, if you keep allowing yourself to get stressed out over the little things, you don't set boundaries with your loved ones, with your work, with your coworkers, with your boss, with your friends and your family, then you're going to keep finding yourself back here. So I'm not saying that we can avoid stress. Stress is inevitable, especially if you're living life. And if you're not striving for anything, you're going to have the mental stress. So stress is always going to be there, but it doesn't need to be there in the way that you might be experiencing it right now. And it doesn't need to be there in a way that's going to keep pushing you away from your goals and making it a lot harder for you to now be able to resist temptation of those foods that you tell yourself are going to make you feel better in the moment. Okay. So a couple things, and everyone manages their stress differently, and everyone's going to come up with a different outlet. We've talked about meditation before. Meditation, I think everyone should at least give a fair shot and a fair chance. And I think we've talked about before using apps like Headspace, Calm, just doing some deep breathing in the morning, giving yourself 5 minutes. Before you go to sleep, taking some breaths and maybe following an app or something. And so meditation is good, and it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be anything long. It just has to be something for you to center yourself, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and you actually will feel better as a result. And it's something very similar to like exercise and eating healthy. It builds and it accumulates, and eventually you will start to notice a difference, but it doesn't really happen overnight. So meditation is an outlet we've talked about before. I want to talk about other things like setting boundaries, okay? How many times do you say yes to things that you don't actually want to do, but you feel like you'd be disappointing the other person and letting them down if you were to say no? Okay, this is something that I've had to learn personally, and it took me years to learn it. You are looking at somebody who was a yes to death. Anything you wanted, anything you needed, yes, yes, yes. The answer was always yes. No matter what I needed to do, no matter anything, it was always yes. And I got myself to a point where I just had to start saying no, because if I didn't, I was going to fall apart. And so you have to remember that you are the most important person in your life. And I know that's so hard to say because I don't want to get into the psychology of it, but unfortunately we tend to, we put others before ourselves because we don't feel like we're worthy enough, but that's for like a whole other episode. But really, like, you matter the most. And so I used to feel like if I had all of these things lined up in a row, I was important and I felt important. But what I didn't realize is that was actually telling myself that I'm actually not as important because I wasn't making myself a priority. So you really need to rethink about when you're saying yes to someone might mean you're saying no to yourself. And so you need to answer the question about, what do I want to do? How do I want to feel? And is this something that's going to help bring me closer to my goal? Okay. So really, really pay attention to that. I know that's going to look different for everyone. But just to give you an example, I come from a very loving Greek and Italian family, guys. I mean, every single one of my family members, we grew up like we could walk to each other's houses. So Monday night dinners were at my Aunt Diane's house. Tuesday we're at my Aunt Joe's house. Wednesday we're at my mom's house. Thursday we went all out to dinner. I mean, like, literally, if I wasn't with 25 people on an ongoing basis, 4 to 5 days a week having dinners, like, it was really, really, like, that was the norm for me. And I say that to say, because when I chose to go to school away, when every single one of my family members chose to go to school in a college where they commuted and they didn't go away, it was like I was letting my family down. But I also know I needed to get out. I needed to find myself. I needed a new perspective. And that was just the beginning to me getting now all of this guilt when I wasn't home for holidays, when I wasn't able to go to dinner every single night, because I started putting up these guidelines, like these barriers, and saying, you know what? No, like, my time matters. So fast forward to today, where I actually live over a bridge. We're like 45 minutes away from my parents, and still my family still gets together on a regular basis. And I'm always constantly getting invited to things on a regular basis. There's always somewhere to go to. But if I continue to say yes to doing those things, I would have been saying no to building my business and being able to be where I am today. So because I was always filling my schedule up with all of these things, I wasn't able to be clear or be able to see what I needed for myself. As I started to slowly say, you know what, I'm going to say no to this opportunity. They might be disappointed, whatever. They were in the beginning, but then they started to realize like, no, you know what? Okay, this is what she's doing. And yeah, the dynamic of the relationship changed a bit, but now they're very proud of me and they see, you know, that I couldn't be at everything. You can't be at everything. You can't say yes to everything. When you say yes to other things, you're saying no to yourself. Okay? So just remember that. And that, honestly, what I find is the stress that a lot of people are under is from yesing themselves to death. And it's not being able to say, no, I really wish that I could, but I really can't do this right now. If you get asked to work extra hours, oh my God, I used to think more money, work more. I had 4 different jobs. I would waitress. I was a dietitian in 3 different locations, building my business on the side. And I was like, oh, well, if I, you know, put in extra hours at the restaurant, like I get more money. Well, if you put in extra hours, your body breaks down and you have to take off work and you get sick and there's no money. Okay. So we have to really, really think about that. Sometimes it's not the immediate answer. We have to think about what's the long run. Okay. So kind of went on a little tangent there, but boundaries are so, so important. You have to learn to take boundaries, and like anything, to set boundaries, like anything, it's a practice. It's going to take time. It's not going to be easy. It's going to feel really uncomfortable. You might disappoint some people, or honestly, a lot of times we think people are disappointed and they realize, you know what? No, she's actually like, okay, cool. You can't hang out this Friday. If you actually like that person, you can say, I really wish I could hang out with you this Friday. But I'm not available. You don't need to give them an explanation. I used to feel like I need to give an explanation and that would stress me out. And then just say, but I would love to get together on this day, and let them know that you're interested, but you don't actually have to follow through with it on that particular day. And then make it so that it works for your schedule. Okay. So one way to manage your stress is to set boundaries. Okay. The other things we can do is actually the applicable things is day to day is being able to maybe meditate or being able to maybe journal your thoughts. I start in the morning. I know a lot of my clients, when they first started working with me, they had a lot of issues sleeping, and it's because their mind was going like this. And I just said, you know what, why don't we leave a journal next to your bed at the end of the night? Just write out your thoughts, just journal it out, get it out. And they've been falling asleep like babies. Okay. So sometimes we're just in our heads too much and we got to get it on paper. So journaling, meditating, going for a walk. You know, sometimes it doesn't have to be a full workout. You know, sometimes just going for a walk, maybe doing some meditation or something yoga can be helpful. And then one of my clients, I was just talking to her this week. She says that I asked her, I said, what do you do? What's helpful for you when you're under stress so we can avoid the eating out of stress, you know, that we know that when we come out of that, it just doesn't feel good. What could we do instead? And she said, which for her, what she does is she usually just will go in her car, and she'll just drive with good music. Not any destination. She's not going anywhere. She's just by herself in her car, listening to really good music and just driving around. And I actually think that can be very helpful. So that might be something that works for you. But here's the thing, guys. All of these things don't work unless you do it. Okay. So you have to find your method and your way. And one last thing I will say before we kind of wrap this up. It's not about doing it sometimes or doing it when you get stressed, right? That's the same thing with your nutrition. It's not about choosing to eat healthy because you've been eating like crap and now your body's telling you, no, I need to eat healthy. Or it's not going to the gym because you've been missing weeks and your body's like, okay, now I need to go to the gym. I'm starting to see my body kind of slip. I'm starting to see the muscle definition go away. I got to do something about it. It's not about planning a trip or a vacation when you're high stress and then every single day you're not implementing stressful or mindful strategies to help prevent and manage that stress. Okay? So when it comes to stress management, these are daily practices you need to do. Just like we need to incorporate daily practices in our nutrition and our fitness. All right? I'm going to leave you with that. I'm trying to wrap up this podcast. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me, tipswithtoni@gmail.com. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Toni podcast, please subscribe. A new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. And if you are enjoying this, please add people to the group. Let people know about the podcast. Share it on your story once it's released. Instagram, Facebook, tag me. And once again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys on Facebook for watching, that you're in the group, and I will talk to you soon.
Tip with Toni, tip with Toni, tip with Toni.